Okay, let's see. I think we're live on everything but Twitter. So we're live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Chuck Ochelli. He runs the Ochelli Effect, and I've been on his show a couple times talking about my research. And then I was listening to his show. He had a friend of mine on, Roberta Glass, and he was talking about his background and about JFK. He also goes by the blind JFK researcher. So I thought I would reach out to him. I've had a lot of people on. JFK, the assassination pops up so many times. I just had Michael Hoffman on today. We talked about the JFK assassination. I had McBride on. I had so many other, Philip Nelson, who's done a lot of stuff about Lyndon Baines Johnson. So you can go back and look through my show on this, but I'm delighted to have Chuck Ochelli on to talk about his research into the JFK assassination. So Chuck Ochelli, welcome to the show.
Listen, it's a great honor to be on with you. This is the first time we've done this with you as the host, so looking forward to that.
Cool, man. Well, I heard like your family life, kind of you're into this. We think about I was thinking about the Vietnam Memorial in D.C. when I lived in D.C. And on that memorial, you have the lives of lives of people who were lost in a war that didn't need to, in my opinion, didn't need to even happen. But it leaves out the reverberations of lives that people whose sanity was taken away, people who may have been injured. And so I think that the Vietnam Memorial, very effective, but may not really encompass the damage that happens in the Vietnam War or war in general. So maybe if you would like to share kind of your background and your start into researching the JFK assassination, which led to the Vietnam War.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. What leads into my desire to investigate is something that seems like it would have nothing to do with it if you didn't learn better later. And I guess I'll just tell a personal story as fast as I can for you, because there's a lot to it. But let me give you the basic, the broad strokes, if you will. So my father, who before I was born served in Vietnam, actually went in, right after the Tet Offensive, in 1968. Initially, he was a volunteer. He went there. This is commonplace among my family history ever since we've been in America. Somebody with my last name, or somebody directly tied to my family tree, I should say, has served in the military and has had the desire to do that, to serve this country. Ethnically, I'm Sicilian and Irish, and especially the Sicilian part, very patriotic, this kind of thing. And I probably would have served had I not been born legally blind. Anyway, 1968, he goes in. And the troubled history of what happened there, best I have been able to piece together, because the U.S. government has not shared all of its documentation regarding my father with me. The fact is that he went in there and went in as, you always have a job when you go in the military. So he went in with the job of construction, which is what he did here in the world. He went in, he tried to join at 17, and then they kicked him back out and let him come back when he was 18. Okay. Anxious to go ahead and serve, to fight communism. This is the mindset my father started with. Wanted to serve the country which was good to his family. Okay.
Gotcha.
I was born in 1972, 4 years later. But before I got to planet Earth, Mr. Ramsey, my father had served and had come back with what people would refer to today as post-traumatic stress disorder, a drug addiction. He was not, according to all counts of all of his family, he was not the same man. He was not the same kid. He was not their brother as they knew him. He was a different man. He, becomes my father in 1972. He was very troubled. And in 1976, he took his own life. I was 4 years old. Now, I didn't know about the Vietnam War at 4. I didn't know about any of that. But around the time I was 9 years old, I had my first inkling of questions regarding the JFK assassination when I was in the third grade class. My teacher said, here's the basic points about this time in history. There's a guy named Oswald who, according to most accounts, killed the president, and then he was killed while in police custody. So my little hand popped up, and I said, "Wait a minute, who killed him?" Well, this guy Jack Ruby, and my question, was he a cop? No. Then how did Jack Ruby kill somebody in police custody? I mean, look, if the cops killed him, maybe he was trying to escape. Maybe there was a problem. He was fighting with them. At 9, this was my question. Something's wrong with this story. I didn't really examine it much further. Okay.
Gotcha.
Fair enough. But here's the problem is another 9 years goes by in my life. And I am 18 and I'm about to leave high school. I left high school at the age of 19. I graduated at 19. But anyway, at the age of 18, I started applying for, grants or loans or whatever it was, because I felt that since I was the child of a veteran and I was born legally blind, that maybe there was some money there for me to go to college. I couldn't afford to pay for it. And I thought about going to college at that point, even though I was already engaged as being a musician, this and that. When I did that, I got back a response from these government agencies that made these offers to help out the children of veterans, and also would have been friendly to the idea of helping a disabled child of a veteran. Despite the fact that my father was dead, he was still a veteran in my mind. And his dog tags I wore around my neck at that time. I got a response back from my government, which stated that, first of all, he had not served. There was no record of any such thing. And that indeed, part of the letter stated that under certain statutes, I could be prosecuted for, I believe it's the stolen valor statute or something like this, where somebody claims the benefits of a veteran who is doing it under false pretense. I was alarmed. I was upset. I had already taken an interest in the JFK assassination a few years earlier, but as I was learning about it, I discovered that indeed John F. Kennedy was in the process of making it so that the Vietnam War would never have been what it was. So I took it a little personally, and I got to tell you, I took it personally on behalf of many other of my contemporaries who had grown up with either very damaged male role models, as in their fathers, their uncles, etc., their grandfathers, even in some cases, because they had served in this war. They had come back, drug addicts, alcoholics. They beat their wives. These guys were in rough shape. My father was not the only suicide that I knew about from somebody who had done that. Okay. So I took moral offense at this idea that there may indeed have been a war that would not have been prosecuted had not John F. Kennedy been killed publicly in November of 1963.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you wrap a personal story around it? It added determination. And even though, again, I was a musician, I wasn't going to college, had to survive on my own and all that kind of good stuff. And believe me, I was doing it before I was 18, but that's another story. So this became a passion and a mission because I wanted the truth regarding what did so much damage, because 60,000, 58,000, whatever it is you want to say, men lost their lives. They're up on that memorial that we see in DC.
Right.
They're there, but there was about 1 million men returned back to the United States who were mutilated in one way or another, whether it's spiritually, psychologically, or physically, that then had a resonant effect on, my entire generation, one way or another. These were our fathers. These were our uncles. These were our older brothers. For God's sake, if you lied about it, which we now know publicly, that the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the justification for accelerating the Vietnam War, for Lyndon Johnson's justification for now landing a whole bunch of extra troops in a little bit later, which would not have been in the hands of Lyndon Johnson and would not have even been a possibility, because John F. Kennedy wanted all U.S. assets. If you read National Security Action Memorandum 263, if you read that and you read a book by a guy named John Newman called JFK in Vietnam, you find out that John F. Kennedy would not have prosecuted that war. It would not have been the circumstance. Could have been avoided. So, yeah, I take it personally.
Right. It might not have been as bad, and Johnson takes over after the death. So, yeah, it really changed, and it reverberates. So it affected your life personally, but like you said, millions of other people. So many people were damaged. I knew stories of people who'd been guys come back, wake up in the middle of the night. I had a high school teacher who was a vet who, he just was damaged. He was psychologically damaged because of the nature of that war. It was something
Well,
went on.
You have scattered memories as a small child, right? And I can tell you one. I'll tell you one that I don't know if I've ever expressed this anywhere publicly, but I'm perhaps I have and I've forgotten. I mean, look, when you tell the truth, it's hard to remember exactly which part of it you bled out sometimes. And I'll tell you a personal thing. You talk about the things in the middle of the night. I distinctly remember not understanding as a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old why my father was sitting in the corner of a room sweating, terrified when he saw me for some reason. I saw him break out into violence occasionally. He never harmed me. I was probably the only person that he did not try to do battle with physically in the world. He would have violent outbursts. He attacked police officers. He attacked his own family. He beat on my mother. He would snap at people. And I knew that, and I just accepted it as the way of the world. I didn't know what caused it. But you know what? I know I'm not alone either. And there's a lot to be said about that. There's something to be said there. Anyway.
Let me tell you this story. This is an amazing story because I remember this from my high school. The same person I'm talking about, who was a Vietnam vet, he was a history teacher and an art teacher. But sometimes he would sit down and read, and I was probably like 14 or 15 at the time. He took out a Vietnam book and read to us like some of the things that happened, like My Lai, and the graphic. Now, I don't even want to repeat it, but it involved rape, torture, like the worst things. And it's so curious looking back because he was telling us how awful it was and how awful it was for everybody, even the troops and the victim, these like peasant victims. But like today, he would have been frog marched out of the school for saying the words he did, like really graphic. But I still remember that story about how horrible Vietnam was. Like they did bad things happen to everybody. So it's just
in retrospect, that story I just told you, I believe, and I'm not certain because I can't ask the man, now he's dead, but it'll be coming up on 50 years in just a few more, but 45 years now. But I in retrospect, I think he was terrified of the vision of me because in his haze that he was in, due to his psychological condition, I think that it caused him to be reminded of situations where maybe, children were killed. And we know that happened.
Right.
And I think in his blur, that's what he saw. And look, I don't want to focus on this too much because, it's still emotional for me to this day, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it's hard.
I think it's important to see the effect of how the death of JFK reverberated through time, because there were so many bad things that happened in the 60s that seems like he was trying to forestall so many bad things, at least in my opinion, that unfortunately did happen. So,
well, and that's the thing. I mean, consider the violence and the upheaval. Now, do you think that would have been the same case if he or his brother were still there? I'm not saying that they were saints, by the way. I'm not one of these people who tries to ascribe sainthood to JFK, but when we have evidence that wouldn't have occurred, that is significant. So, that happened to me again when I was leaving high school. But before I left high school, if you want to get into the rest of my background about this, before I left high school, I was so curious about it because in 1988, it was the 25th anniversary of the assassination. And there was a lot of media programs about it. I started discovering books about it. I started reading. And I was a musician, again, a teenage musician who would occasionally travel. So I had time to read. I didn't drive because my eyesight. So I had time to read. and I read in places we stopped. I read on the road. And sometimes we traveled to places where I knew that there were individuals that I was reading about in the books had moved to, had lived. So I would take out a phone book and, like, say somewhere in Pennsylvania, and pop open a phone book and see if I could find that person's name in there, and then just cold call them and say, listen, I'm just a guy who's interested in this. I was reading about you in this book. And a lot of people hung up on me, but some of them didn't.
Interesting.
And I started just talking to witnesses, participants, and things from the autopsy to the casket detail to maybe they had been in Dallas, maybe they were a witness and they had moved away, they had come east and they were closer to me. And then I was even able to meet some of these people on my off time, or spend a lot of time talking to them on the phone. And it just absolutely made me understand that the official story was, first of all, nonsense. But secondly, that there was real history that I could learn from the interactions, the conversation, and I went there, and that graduated into many other areas: photographic work, document research, all these things, which, by the way, I had to teach myself because I was no academic. I mean, I had graduated from not the best high school in New Jersey, and I'm not saying that I was an idiot or anything. It's just that, let's be honest. I mean, when it comes to research and knowing how to collect and collate data and all this kind of stuff, I had to learn kind of on the fly as I was doing it. So going into adulthood, this describes why my passion was there for sure, but it was also intriguing to me because it seemed endless. And the fact that the government held back things, the fact that the media seemed to be, just working on a spin and all that stuff. It was like, I started out actually thinking that I should be able to disprove all this, that if I learn enough about this, I should be able to tell a conspiracy theorist, right? That you don't know what you're talking about because the official story is right. I thought maybe I could settle it, for my own purposes, in conversation with people that would tell me about this stuff. And what I wound up doing is becoming what I consider to be a conspiracy advocate, as opposed to a lone nut theorist.
Fascinating. Okay. Right. So, like, you learned it, and this is pre-internet too. So you're doing the legwork, footwork, compiling documents, etc.
Oh yeah, I had to learn how to get things from the National Archives directly because I wanted the documents. I had to learn different ways. I traded tape recordings with people all across the country. I did things like this. I'll conduct an interview for you. You conduct an interview for me. We would exchange tapes. We keep our own copies. I mean, all different stuff like this. I started cooperating with what I would call the New York and New Jersey contingent of people older than myself, of people that had degrees, ranging from PhDs to they're a history teacher to, some cases there were lawyers. One of the first interesting people was Vince Salandria, who was a name people should know if they know the JFK assassination. I got involved in the chain letters where we used to actually copy and then staple together our own piece of the letter and send it out.
Wow.
Among,
pre-internet. Yeah.
Even William Cooper, right?
Wow. Interesting.
His videotape was available to me. Again, when I was a teenager, it cost you $50. You could, if you knew his mailing address in Arizona, you could send out to him. Okay. And he would send you his copy of the Zapruder film and his explanation. And there was other things. He filled up the rest of the tape with stuff, and you'd get a packet of information from him out there in Arizona. And also I was a talk radio fanatic. So I listened to shortwave, longwave, all kinds of talk radio. I used to enjoy how AM signals traveled. So I discovered Bill Cooper that way too. And just kind of found out about him in the tape trading community as well.
Fascinating. And he was the advocate for the guard in the back had a gun or something too, right?
He was the limo driver shot the president, right, which he was wrong about. But again, this is me in the early days just going, wow, there is so many possibilities and so much insanity here. And why is it we're not allowed to see the documents? Why is it that the films have been held back? Why is it that, people that try and publish these things, they don't want to publish it in America? I mean, I was finding out all this stuff. that there was suppression about the information. There was a lack of an investigation. And again, still dealing with that root problem to me is that Vietnam didn't have to happen.
Right.
You know, so what can I say? That this was the motivation for me to learn on the job from other people and to wind up, cooperating with some of the best known names, some cases handing them research I did because I didn't even want credit. I just wanted to compile the truth somewhere and get it out.
You were one of those guys putting the pieces of the puzzle together when it was much harder. That today you can get, there's so many books and there's been so much accrued information that I think it's simpler. There might be some still difficulties, but I think people get a much better picture than before the internet. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you about, listen, if you turn around and go into a search engine right now and you just put in JFK autopsy images, you'll be greeted with a bunch of them. I remember the days when there was only a handful of people who had a hold of a set of contact negatives that were made from what we call the Fox set of photographs, which is a bootleg set of JFK autopsy images that people are very familiar with nowadays. But I remember having to come up with $150 to get me a print copy off of the guy that I happened to track down that had it.
Right.
You had to come up with some money. You had to travel. You had to see people. It wasn't, a mouse click away.
Did you experience any kind of personal risks or anything? Did people kind of get any harassment from strange, cloaked figures, so to speak?
Well, I can tell you, I'll give you a great anecdote about that. I can tell you that personally, this caused me because you wind up getting into this. And quite frankly, if you don't obsess on it and you don't work on it a lot, you're never going to learn anything because it is so massive. I mean, it's a short piece of history, but I mean, I lost count there was over 1,000 books about this. And I'm talking about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was over 1,000 published books about this case. Okay.
That's a lot.
Which I know I personally read more than 300. I lost count around there. But
I'm actually have a guy on tomorrow, Herbst, Herbst, who wrote a book about the lead up to JFK. So that'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, no, that's an interesting topic as well. And I can tell you that, I mean, no offense to him, but there's many people who have written about that as well.
Oh, okay.
And the literature in and of itself it's a curious case study.
Right, it really is. Good point.
Yeah. So look, I give you the anecdote, but I got to tell you that personally over the years, it caused a lot of people to, come on, man, is this all you talk about? Is this all you do? Is this what you put your money on? I mean, is this? And yeah, it was for a bunch of years. And I didn't seek to write a lot of articles. I've never written a book. I didn't technically make a film. I mean, I made a little short thing on YouTube, but I mean, I've never made a film. I wasn't looking to gain anything from it outside of the truth. So anyway, I'll tell you the funniest piece of information about this where Homeland Security engaged with me.
Wow.
Let's
tell that story.
It's a funny thing where it got triggered, and it's kind of wild. It's going to sound like I'm going around this issue, but bear with me.
Okay.
I was going to get married for the second time. I'd been married and divorced, and all that, and I was going to get married for the second time. My second wife is deceased, but the thing is, when she was still alive, she could have verified this story for you. She had an ex-husband who was harassing her and indeed us at a certain point. And so she went to court and got a restraining order. Now, this sounds like, what are you talking about? Now, hold on. So she got a restraining order and we were going to get married on a boat. Okay. So the kicker is any boat that you see that's in business somewhere is a registered naval vessel with the U.S. government. So stick a pin in that. He threatened to blow up the boat. And so that was entered into open court as part of the justification for the the restraining order. Wow. So, this is good law abiding stuff and everything. All right. So, trying to avoid harassment. I mean, William, can you blame us, right?
No, no.
The guy's throwing things at our house, driving by, making phone calls, causing all kinds of problems, breaking stuff. All right. So, you go to the cops, good, regular, all American citizen, and they tell you, go get a restraining order. All right. So, anyway, he threatens to do that. The night before we're supposed to get married, there's a knock on our door. And it's the FBI. All right.
Interesting. Yes.
So, all right, listen, we really need to speak with you about tomorrow. Not only have we alerted the local police to cooperate with us, but we are going to have to insert ourselves into your wedding.
Wow.
Okay. This is, I'm going to tell you the kicker on that in a second, but they separated me and my fiance at the time and started talking to us separately. They're kind of, running me around about this. And I'm like, okay, I understand. They're telling me, look, the Department of Homeland Security engaged with us to handle this situation because your wife's ex has threatened a registered U.S. naval vessel, which is technically, connected to a response for terrorism. I said, all right, that's all good and everything. But somehow I shortened the conversation with them and wandered back over to my fiance. And what they were in the middle of telling her is that they have a file on me. And that file started in 1984 when I was 12 years old because I wrote a letter to President Reagan. Wow. And my letter to President Reagan was, hang on, this is all good government stuff. Hang on. I wrote a letter to President Reagan basically explaining that as a young person in this country, I feel as though a nuclear arms race is a dangerous thing to engage in because, after all, people make mistakes. And a mistake could destroy the entire planet. And shouldn't we find a better solution? I got a nice little form letter back from the White House and all that. And I was totally unaware of any of this, But anyway, they told her that part of it, that they had started my file then. And then, even though I had never publicly published anything, I had never done a radio show, none of that, they were telling her that I had what amounts to a subversive file because I had been involved in JFK research and had claimed among groups of JFK researchers that it was very possible that the CIA itself was involved in the assassination.
So that makes you subversive. Wow.
No radio show. But I'm a dangerous person because of it. Wow. And they were literally telling her this, that you're quite aware that your husband is one of these people who, we do have to keep an eye on.
He's a JFK researcher. Right.
A JFK researcher. Now, truth is, I was a juvenile delinquent, and they knew that too. They knew all kinds of stuff about my life. Even though the last time I interacted with an FBI agent, I was fingerprinted as a kid because there were children disappearing. And they did that whole program where they sent FBI people around to schools.
Right, I remember that.
The last time I'd seen an FBI agent was then. But they had a whole file. And we're telling her about that, and that I had been a juvenile delinquent, and that I had possibly been at certain points, in contact with people in organized crime. And that I had also been among others who might have been political radicals that were actually dangerous and things like that. I mean, all this stuff about my history, which was really
incredible.
Yeah. They're telling her all that. And on top of it, telling her that if she felt like sharing some information that could be helpful to them about me, that she should understand that, even though a wife can't be compelled to testify, literally, this is the conversation I walked back in on. Okay. And my mousy 95-pound soaking wet. 5'5", 95 pounds, skinny little thing, scared of her own shadow. Okay. I don't want to describe her too much, but I got to tell you, not an assertive woman, not a rebellious woman, very quiet. Okay.
Right.
She looked at them straight ahead and said, no matter what this man does, I'm not going to help you to get him locked up, no matter what it is you say to me. which I was like, thank God I'm marrying this woman. And the thing is, I wasn't doing anything wrong, William. You understand? I wasn't a terrorist. I wasn't doing, I mean, I had done my JFK research and maybe challenged the government's assertions, but no publication, no public speaking engagements, no awards given to me, no book, no nothing. I had not been a public figure and they were on me. I wasn't even on Facebook yet. You understand?
Right.
Okay.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody's probably monitoring all the JFK researchers probably from the 70s or late. I mean, even like if you look at what Garrison went through, it's probably been that way from the, since 63. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that there are plenty of us that the ones that are kicking over the wrong stones, one way or another. It just means that I am sure that at a certain point I kicked something over sensitive. Right. That's all that means. Do you think they had to have my entire history and everything for some reason?
Right, like going back to age 12, like that's incredible. Do you feel like you came across something that no other researcher may have seen or anything like that you blew dust off of something that nobody had uncovered it up to a certain time?
Well, it's hard to say because there are so many people that have done, very good work and many people that have claimed to do good work. And it turns out, maybe they don't have all the evidence to back up what it is they're saying. And there's a variety of that. So it's hard to say if I've ever encountered something that was entirely unknown. I'm convinced that I know a few things that I've never seen published, but again, it's impossible. I mean, William, I'll tell you what, you go find out, and there's at least 1,000 books 15 years ago. Right. If anybody ever published, name a fact. Okay. I mean, I don't know, honestly, if I know something nobody else knows. I know that other people that I'm quite convinced are very knowledgeable and, engage with me know that I am a knowledgeable guy. I don't even call myself an expert, by the way.
Interesting.
I'm just somebody who has more than the average person's knowledge. And I've been asked to write a book because there are some unique things I could add to the conversation, I think, but I'm not convinced that I know that for sure.
Well, the thing is if you've been in the research game and that for those decades, just telling that story of how you started uncovering things, I think you would just add to the corpus of all the useful JFK material out there, not the stuff that isn't useful, but then people could know how your research progressed and your understanding, unfolded, kind of like peeling the onion, right?
Yeah, no, I literally considered recently because some encouragement. I mean, I've gotten busy with other things, but I considered writing a book that I wanted to call The Hitchhiker's Guide to the JFK Assassination, because I really feel like that's what happened to me, where I sort of, stuck out my thumb and joined the caravan, which is a little less friendly than some people would like to let you know. Very splintered.
I hear that there's really poisonous battles within the JFK community. There's some real headbutting. Yeah, I heard that. I mean, over kind of minor stuff. It seems like that happens in a lot of communities, that sometimes there's unnecessary. It seems like unnecessary conflict. It seems.
Well, right. And then you have the incidents where a lot of people say, well, this guy has apparently been sent to us to cause this problem. And I got to tell you, I can't argue against all the people that say that. I think sometimes people intentionally come in and look, they just like to raise a ruckus. They like to be hell raisers. I think that's part of what some people just have in their character. There are others who I've seen in other historical events too, who wish to insert themselves into the history because they had some proximity, some brush with the history. So they exaggerate that. They make it so that it's a more significant thing, or they've literally just inserted themselves. Right. So I mean, the whole thing is riddled with a variety of problematic individuals, even the people doing good work sometimes.
Right.
I'm gonna get
Well,
myself in trouble there.
I think even like at the JFK community is probably similar to like, political research or conspiracy research. There's some characters that pop in and out that have gone around on podcasts that are clearly full of baloney, and some people take them seriously. And yeah, it is interesting how that happens. Like,
and some
they
people get married to a position, which happens in politics, in in any socialization whatsoever anyway, where they get kind of married to a position, and they don't want to admit that they were actually drunk on something, and they woke up with the somebody they realized they had beer goggles on. It's just they get married to a theory, or they get married and they won't let it go despite the evidence as it comes up. And that I've seen happen, with everything. The politician who fails them, they still stick by him, regardless of the fact that they've literally contradicted, in their behavior, what it is they said they desired in the first place. I mean, it's just, and I'm using generalizations here.
But I know what you're talking about. I know what you're referencing, though.
Okay.
I think. But yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting. It's kind of like you can see, like, the community, the JFK community is kind of like a petri dish of humans, trying to relate to complex things and things that are under the surface and how they do that. I mean, it's such an important, that's why people probably can get fixated on that, or 9/11, or, maybe what's going on today with all these jabs or something. It's just like, so important. I mean, It was really a coup. So I think that's what people have to know, is that there's forces that can change the full destiny of the government and foreign policy.
Right. And look, even if you think the government was above board, which I don't, but if you think it was in 1963, and you think that your vote counted, which I've got a problem with, not just, in recent years, but always. Right. If you think there aren't elements out there that steer the momentum of the system, the inertia of the system in general, despite what the will of the people is, even if you don't believe in any of that and you think everything was above board, it is a horrible thing to think that the what is the phrase? The leader of the free world, right?
Right.
Could be publicly executed in an American city while being guarded and everything else, right? And yet there is actually no clear solution to that crime to this day. And indeed, the American government has two official conclusions which do differ from one another, because the Warren Commission said it was Oswald alone, and then Jack Ruby alone. That's the two murders that you got to worry about. Oops, wait a minute. There's also J.D. Tippit. Okay. And then in the 1970s, the House Select Committee said, well, actually, to a 90 whatever percent certainty, there was a conspiracy. It involved Oswald, but there was a conspiracy. And then the guy who wound up heading that commission went out and tried to sell the story about the mob did it, which I actively help to disprove to anybody who's discerning in my mind, by literally checking out things. And I've been through a lot. French gunman, and did the limo driver shoot him, and Judy Baker. Okay,
right. So there's a lot there, right? Yeah.
Just saying. Okay,
I understand.
I've been through a lot of things that I had to put aside, that I had to examine and say, look, this is just not valid. Gordon Arnold being there on the knoll, a lot of things. Okay,
right.
And it's hard work working through the mistakes, misinformation, misunderstanding, poor technology, people working with secondary pieces of information and evidence. There's a whole world to this. And sadly, to come to a concise conclusion about it, because always the question, by the way, which I want to celebrate you right now for not asking me this question, because almost anybody who asks me to talk about this, either on air, during a recording or not, will say to me, all right, look, just tell me who did it. You hear my laugh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's if I had enough evidence to back up, well, what my supposition is, I would tell you, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough, and I've studied the granular ends of so much of it. I have an idea.
Right.
I have a certainty that the official story sucks.
Right.
Okay.
No, it's not believable. It's not believable.
No, it just doesn't work. It's just so many different levels. It just doesn't work. But
They had a lot of enemies, very powerful enemies from different areas. It wasn't just like the CIA. He alienated a lot of people, and so the anti-Castro
oil.
Cubans, big
Big
oil,
oil, Wall Street, the military industrial complex. I mean, the CIA, yes. I mean, how many enemies you want? I mean,
it's like harder to take who isn't his enemy than who is, because the family's pissing off the mob, and there's weird kind of overlaps between mob and all different businesses and Jack Ruby, and
oh yeah, no, and there's a lot there too, because don't forget that the CIA, even proper CIA, not to mention the creatures it creates, were we discovered in the 1970s also during the different committees that they were more than happy to hire criminals of any kind in any place. So maybe not the Italian mafia, but it doesn't matter. It could have been any criminal. Any criminal. Read their assassination guide, which, by the way, exists. Go ahead and do a search on it if you want. Anybody listening?
And I think under that house, under the Assassination Bureau, didn't a bunch of mobsters die around that time too? Didn't some? I thought it was one of those investigations in the 70s where, pertaining to JFK, where they died out. Was the church committee or something?
Oh yeah,
like somebody didn't want them to testify or didn't want them to talk.
Yeah, I mean, look, some people make this huge list of people that died conveniently, but nobody can deny that there were individuals that died at pretty good times if you didn't want to get at the whole truth. Right. So I mean, there's tons of that. There's tons of people that change their stories, disappear, okay, end up in insane asylums, all kinds of stuff. One of the guys who found the rifle, one of the cops, was for a long time in like a sanitarium, I think they called it. But
right. No, it's just a crazy. Everything surrounding that JFK assassination is tainted and corrupt, and people dying. I mean, So anyway, it's great to talk with you. I'm glad you shared that story, Chuck. So I appreciate that. Where's the best place for people? Maybe like I see on your website today, you had Leno Sanic, so you've had these other JFK. Where's the best place? Is it the Ochelli effect where people can see your interviews with people about the JFK assassination?
Well, I try and put it out just about anywhere where podcasts are found. I've got an online little radio station. Ochelli.com is my website, and Ochelli.com radio. If you search for Ochelli, you should find me, because not a lot of people with that surname anyway. But Ochelli.com is the website that I put out most material through. I got YouTube, and I've got the Spreaker, and I've got the whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you can find it all at Ochelli.com. I don't do a lot of social media, but I do exist in some social media circles. But yeah, that's basically the one-stop shop. And I've also got, God help me, I've got this TNT radio.live show, the Chuck Ochelli show, which I'm doing during the day now. And there's a variety of things there, way beyond JFK, by the way. Right. I discuss politics and media, and I have guys like William Ramsey on, and I discuss the interesting and darker sides of what maybe your mainstream and even your alleged alternative media are not necessarily always willing to cover. Right. The drug war, the various criminal enterprises of our intelligence communities, on and on, and even the run-of-the-mill news stories that come up and all that. So I try and cover it all, because I think that everything that goes on in the darkness needs to come into the light. I think that everybody who is out there doing harm one way or another should be brought to account. And I think it is only going to be the independent voices out there that are in a unique time in our history that are going to get to do it. So I thank you for having me today, sir.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And great conversation. If people want to contact you, they can contact you through OchelliEffect.com too. So if they want to reach out to you.
Not OchelliEffect.com. Somebody hijacked that.
Okay.
Ochelli.com. That's it.
Ochelli.com. Sorry. So I'll put that in the notes. Ochelli.com, and it's Charles or Chuck Ochelli. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. God bless. Stay there.